In the absence of further statistics, I beg to close this chapter with one more reminiscence of Stephen. Most of the captains and pilots held Stephen's note for borrowed sums ranging from $250 upward. Stephen never paid one of those notes, but he was very prompt and very zealous about renewing them every 12 months. Of course, there came a time at last when Stephen could no longer borrow off his ancient creditors, and so he was obliged to lie in wait for new men who did not know him. Such a victim was good-hearted, simple-natured young Yates. I use a fictitious name, but the real name began as this one does with a Y. Young Yates graduated as a pilot, got a berth, and when the month was ended, and he stepped out into the clerk's office and received his $250 in crisp new bills. Stephen was there. His silvery tongue began to wag, and in a very little while Yates' $250 had changed hands. The fact was soon known at pilot headquarters, and the amusement and satisfaction of the old creditors were large and generous. But innocent Yates never suspected that Stephen's promise to pay promptly at the end of the week was a worthless one. Yates called for his money at the stipulated time. Stephen sweetened him up and put him off a week. He called then, according to agreement, came away sugar-coated again, but suffering under another postponement. So the thing went on. Yates haunted Stephen week after week to no purpose, and at last gave up. And then straightway Stephen began to haunt Yates. Whenever Yates appeared, there was inevitable Stephen, and not only there, but beaming with affection and gushing with apologies for not being able to pay. By and by, whenever Yates saw him coming, he would turn and fly, and drag his company with him, if he had company. But it was of no use. His debtor would run him down and corner him. Panting and red-faced, Stephen would come with outstretched hands and eager eyes, invade the conversation, shake both of Yates's arms loose in their sockets, and begin, "My, what a race I've had. I saw you didn't see me, so I clapped on all steam for fear I'd miss you entirely, and here you are. There, just stand so and let me look at you. Just the same old noble countenance," to Yates's friend. "Just look at him, look at him. Ain't it just good to look at him, ain't it now? Ain't he just a picture? Some call him a picture, I call him a panorama. That's what he is, an entire panorama. And now I'm reminded how I do wish I could have seen you an hour earlier. For 24 hours I've been saving up that $250 for you, been looking for you everywhere. I waited at the Planters from 6 yesterday evening till 2 o'clock this morning without rest or food. My wife says, 'Where have you been all night?' I said, 'This debt lies heavy on my mind.' She says, 'In all my days I never saw a man take a debt to heart the way you do.' I said, 'It's my nature. How can I change it?' She says, 'Well, do go to bed and get some rest.' I said, 'Not till that poor noble young man has got his money.' So I sat up all night, and this morning out I shot, and the first man I struck told me you had shipped on the Grand Turk and gone to New Orleans. Well, sir, I had to lean up against a building and cry. So help me goodness, I couldn't help it. The man that owned the place came out cleaning up with a rag and said he didn't like to have people crying against his building, and then it seemed to me that the whole world had turned against me, and it wasn't any use to live any more. And coming along an hour ago, suffering no man knows what agony, I met Jim Wilson and paid him the $250 on account. And to think that here you are now, and I haven't got a cent. But as sure as I'm standing here on this ground, on this particular brick, there, I've scratched a mark on the brick to remember it by. I'll borrow that money and pay it over to you at 12 o'clock sharp tomorrow. Now stand so. Let me look at you just once more." And so Yates' life became a burden to him. He could not escape his debtor and his debtor's awful sufferings on account of not being able to pay. He dreaded to show himself in the street lest he should find Stephen lying in wait for him at the corner. Bogart's billiard saloon was a great resort for pilots in those days. They met there about as much to exchange river news as to play. One morning Yates was there. Stephen was there too, but kept out of sight. But by and by, when all the pilots had arrived who were in town, Stephen suddenly appeared in the midst and rushed for Yates as for a long-lost brother. "Oh, I'm so glad to see you. Oh, my soul, the sight of you is such a comfort to my eyes. Gentlemen, I owe all of you money. Among you I owe probably $40,000. I want to pay it. I intend to pay every last cent of it. You all know, without my telling you, what a sorrow it has cost me to remain so long under such deep obligations to such patient and generous friends. But the sharpest pang I suffer, by far the sharpest, is from the debt I owe this noble young man here, and I have come to this place this morning especially to make the announcement that I have at last found a method whereby I can pay off all my debts. And most especially I wanted him to be here when I announced it. Yes, my faithful friend, my benefactor, I've found the method. I've found the method to pay off all my debts, and you'll get your money." Hope dawned in Yates's eye. Then Stephen beamed benignantly and placed his hands upon Yates's head and added, "I'm going to pay them off in alphabetical order." Then he turned and disappeared. The full significance of Stephen's method did not dawn upon the perplexed and musing crowd for some 2 minutes, and then Yates murmured with a sigh, "Well, the wise stand a gaudy chance. He won't get any further than the seas in this world, and I reckon that after a good deal of eternity has wasted away in the next one, I'll still be referred to up there as that poor ragged pilot that came here from St. Louis in the early days."